I'm going to shortly hand over to, we're going to hear from people from the flotilla, and I can't wait to listen to them. So that'll be the opening few people talking, and then we're going to have Senator Francis Black is going to talk us through some of the legislative stuff happening in Ireland at the moment. And so we're so delighted to have you here. Thank you. And what else, Alan? Who else is going to be?
Abby's going to play for us.
Abby is going to sing. Oh no, Abby's going to play.
And you're going to do the dance, remember?
And I'm going to do the dance. Yeah, Abby's going to, you know what I'll do? I'll do one of those running things over and you have to catch me. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, Abby, if any of you were down in the promenade, there was a girl, Abby in Lansing, she played the violin and it was so beautiful. And so I put her on the spot and I said, would you come up and just do a tune for us as well in between? And she said she will. She's not here now, but so she'll be here. And so,
Vicky.
And then, yeah, and we'll have a Q&A as well, okay? So if you have questions coming up throughout the evening, questions about, you know, the Irish political system and what we're doing there, or questions about what it's like to be part of the flotilla, or questions about what was it about those biscuits that made them savoury? I'll tell you, Nigella siege. So if you have questions, hold on to them. We'll make time for questions, okay? Because I know everyone here is very invested and cares a lot, and we're lucky to have you. What was that sound? Just the door. Hi. And then to round off the night, Vicky Keating is going to sing to us, which will be absolutely beautiful. So we're so glad. Yeah. Just a quick few words about, you're fine. Just a quick few words about, you know, why it's important to be in Cork and in Cobh. Isn't it meaningful, actually, that we're here in Cork and we're here in Cobh tonight? I think I was thinking about Mother Jones, you know, she was originally from Cork, born in Cork just before, I think, the famine. And she made it through the famine as a little girl. And then she ended up living in America and lost her whole family through yellow fever. And then just went on to become a labour organiser who was really a really powerful voice for workers in America for many years. And I was like looking her up, and I was looking up, like, you know, oh, the humanitarian Mother Jones. And then I was reading about her. I was like, I don't know if that's the word she'd use. And then literally, this is a quote from her: "I'm not a humanitarian, I'm a hellraiser." Oh my God, yes. So that's real Cork. And you know, she also said something else that's much more well known about her that I think is really appropriate as we watch the continuing destruction by US-backed Israeli forces in Gaza and right throughout Palestine and the West Bank too. I think something else that she said that's really appropriate for now is, she said, pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. Okay? So, yeah, let's keep that in our minds. So, I suppose the last quick thing I wanted to point out, and it's hard not to, even just looking out here at the sea, and we were chatting earlier, and I was saying to you, Cobh is the point of departure for so many immigrants, right? Not these days, but in the worst days of Irish history, when we were a colonised nation and when the oppressors were, occupying the territory here. People would leave from Cobh, right? I suppose they wanted to visit the Heritage Centre before they went. No. Actually, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands, more than 1 million people left from Cobh. So this would have been their the last part of Ireland that they saw was Cobh, and that's represented. Maybe you've seen the little statue of Annie Moore. Did you see the statue of Annie Moore there? So Annie Moore was basically an unaccompanied minor, right? She was an unaccompanied child bringing her 2 little brothers. There's differing reports, she was either 14 or 17. And she was bringing her 2 younger brothers over to, they had been separated by, I guess, by oppression, poverty, war. And then she was bringing over her two brothers to meet their dad in New York. Now, she didn't have any papers. Like, she didn't have passports. She would have been seen as like, there wasn't passports, there wasn't visas. So think about how unfortunate she was and how unfortunate so many people that left from Cobh were. We know about the coffin ships, right? People who literally got on boats that became coffins. And so we know about that, and I think we all feel that deeply in our own bodies and in our own sense of our own ancestry. But then I also kind of think at least they could leave, you know, like it was the last resort, and it's terrible that this forced migration happened, but at least they could leave. And so that's why it's so incredible that there are boats sailing to Gaza to end the blockade, to allow food and medicine and aid in, and also, importantly, to allow people to leave. Now, the Palestinians don't need to and don't want to leave their land, but they should have a right to move, just as every one of us has a right to move. Okay? It makes no sense that depending on where you're born or what time you're born in, that you can or cannot move to get safety for yourself, or even just to get better opportunities for yourself, okay? There's no Olympics of like, oh, well, they deserve it because this is terrible and it's happening to them. They should move because they're people and they're allowed to move. And so that's why it's so important. We need to end the siege, break the blockade, and allow the people of Palestine to move freely. Yeah.
I was nervous because I thought, what am I going to say to an audience of Irish and Palestinians about resistance and occupation? What do I have to say? And I decided that I would, instead of talking about that directly, I would make a confession because I'm in Ireland, and it would be my first confession. I've never done it before. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. So, I've seen this in the movies, but what do you say first? Forgive me, mother?
Well, no, forgive me, father.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bless me, Paul.
I've seen?
I haven't been to confession in how long?
Well, I've never been, so you're way ahead of me.
40 years.
So now I say what I did? Is that it?
Bless yourself.
Oh, I blessed my... Yeah, okay. All right, we got it. So, long ago...
I'm gonna...
Yeah, you're going. Because this is pretty rough. Long ago, when I was much younger, it was 2007, in a kind of mythical land called the United States of America, and in a magical city called Des Moines, Iowa. Don't argue with me about the pronunciation of that, please. And in a time of kind of moral weakness on my part, and I think on the part of a lot of people, the Democratic Presidential Caucus. And here it goes. I volunteered to support a candidate whose name, well, his middle name was Robinette. Joe Biden. I'm sorry. I'm kind of a political version, at least I was back then. And I knew that political people did stuff and things, and if you weren't careful, you could catch a case of APAC. And my parents did tell me about Christian Zionists, but I thought they were old men from the South with a brain full of the Bible and anger in their heart, and Joe Biden. And I talked to that man. I had conversations with him about public health, spending public money on public health for the public. But this is the guy who has directed and paid for the destruction of an entire health system, tortured doctors and nurses and murdered them and bombed hospitals, and we all know this, and I can't believe this horrible absurdity. Joe, so we have conversations in these circles about the influence of the Israeli government over the US Congress and about the US State Department's control of Israel or influence over it. I call it the Anglo-Zionist tango. And it's interesting, but I want you to know that No organization of militants running around with guns could have accomplished this horrible history, could have disrupted so many people, could have stolen so much land without first tens of thousands of British troops, and you know those guys, and the RAF bombers, and the Royal Navy lobbing mortars into the beach, just as we still do, and the morally, intellectually bankrupt imperial government that finally just gave up and said, oh God, you take it, give it to Truman. And now successive US presidents, and we have Joe, who is our Christian Zionist commander-in-chief. I call him the CZCC. And Joe once said to me, if you really want to know what people want to see happen, you look at their budget. And so we're looking at his budget, billions of dollars shipped off to Israel to bomb people, which for me is a confirmation of something I think we've all suspected for a long time. Throughout the attempt of the US to manage the Middle East, they have really thought in their secret heart of hearts that it would be a lot easier if the Palestinians just went away. That's what they really want. That's what they're really doing. It would be more manageable, more predictable, more profitable. But Joe, it's not going to happen because we have a little boat and we have big boats and we'll have more boats and we have pulled Palestine with help from all of you and all the people like you onto center stage again and ripped open the curtain for the Western world to see. And we're going to make them look at it. Not just the dissident Jewish Americans and the angry students and the black and brown people struggling to make themselves a living in this horrible economy in the US and perhaps elsewhere, but also the blind mice of the media. So, the blind mice of the media, there are a bunch. I know some of them. I want to say that I have a hope here that this will change, and I have a hope that the children I saw playing in the park next door will, in 20 or 30 years, be able to say to their friends and perhaps their children, there was a horrible war, and my parents and my uncles and aunts worked at stopping it, and it did. That's my hope. And I'll leave that with you, except to say that we can always use a little money, a couple of years or two. I know that you have all donated and you all work, and I hope that there are some new people here, because in addition to handing over a couple of euros, which is good, I want you to understand that getting involved in this thing is essential, because you meet so many wonderful people, and you get so much done, whether you know it day to day or not, you do. And it's very good for you. So please, if you have any skills at all, come and help. If you don't have any skills, come and learn how to do something. We'll teach you how to drive a boat if that's necessary, if you don't mind being cold and wet. Please join us in this campaign. Thank you. How we were arrested. It was kind of interesting. You know, we had this game we played. I was hoping that we would get this gust of wind that would just chase us into Gaza, and we didn't. Our engine by that time was not working. That's a long story I won't get into. But we played this game in which we imagined the movie they would make out of our heroic sail to Gaza. And so we all picked the actor who would play each of us. Each of us picked it for somebody else. And I was Harrison Ford, of course. Harrison has not contacted me. The pickup, the arrest, they waited till dark. We knew exactly where we were, about 45 miles, nautical miles off Gaza. I could hear them. They chased us through the oil fields, which was a bit of an adventure. a little crazy. And we waited. We were becalmed, and we saw the lights collect at the cardinal points. And then the roar of a diesel-powered inflatable, about 40 feet long, with a metal platform in the front. And then they slowed down the diesel as they approached us, and a woman with a bullhorn called over to us. She said her name, which I forget, and she said, I'm something or other of the Israeli Navy, and we come in peace. And I thought, oh, sure. They bumped the inflatable up against the side of a boat, and maybe 20 young women and men with M16s on their shoulder popped into the boat, asked me to change my course. I said, I don't work for the idea. And then the fellow who took over knew a little bit about where to point the boat, and I realized that I was listening to an accent from my hometown in Toronto. And I said to him, what high school did you go to? And it turned out that he went to the wrong high school, so we weren't going to be friends. But it is shocking that Israel recruits in Canada. And it's illegal under Canadian law. And there's a lawsuit working its way through, but it's illegal, but they do it anyway. And our politicians let them get away with it. So they took us under tow. I'll tell you one other thing about that. I do tend to go on, I'm sorry. I could see the shoreline. And you know, when a sailor approaches a city at night, you always see a loom over the city, the busyness of the city and the lights, the street lights and cars moving. You see it reflected off the atmosphere. So there was a loom over Ashdod where we were going. And then right in the middle, in my line of vision, to the right, going south, velvety blackness. There was nothing. No energy, nothing going on. Just 2 million people in the dark. And this was right after, in fact, actually during the time of the Great March of Return, when every Friday, I think it was, many people would be maimed and shot and killed by snipers. So to look at that and think, well, it was Friday, it was my birthday. They'd been out there that afternoon in the sunlight getting shot, and now they're in the dark, and I'm going to jail. So that was how they picked us up. The surprising part of my life's journey was being a 17-year-old in 1967, June and July, and being pretty noisy and approving of the fact that Israel had bombed Egypt. We were typical 17-year-old boys. And I happened to be with a couple of my Jewish friends in somebody's rec room in Toronto, and an elderly man who spoke only Yiddish, I didn't even know what Yiddish was at the time, gave me a tug on my sleeve and pulled me aside. And all he could say to me was, this isn't good. This is not good. You should not be cheering about this. Don't do that. And you've just won a war. Isn't winning a war a good thing? And it sent me to the library, and I've been reading about it ever since. The other surprising thing about the journey itself in 2018 was getting into jail and discovering these wonderful little cucumbers. It was all they fed us, cucumbers, but they were really good.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum to you all. When I stepped into this space tonight, as many of us did, it was holding the duality, I think, of both the joy and the light and the love and the creativity of all that we participated in today with the children, the artists, the musicians. And it was also holding the grief of Al-Masawi, of Rafah, of Dir Bala, of Jabalia, of the numerous communities under sustained, systematic, horrific, brutal attack. And I think so much of what we're all collectively navigating over these months of horror has been that duality, both the comfort and the solace of this community, of this coming together, of this mirroring and echoing of the conversations, the narratives, the emotions that we're all navigating. And it's also been the contraction into the pixelated images of horror and grief and keening and mourning in Gaza. And when stepping into this space, I was thinking that I'd like to speak a little bit both about them and about us and about the us in them. Because more than ever, I think the illusory borders and boundaries that separate and other and distance the shared collective experience of our collective humanity has diminished to a point in which the us is them and the them is us. And slogans that might have seemed abstract 9 months ago, such as "they are our children now," I think we're all feeling on a visceral and a cellular level. So some of the people that were in my mind as I also entered in through that door, having looked at the beautiful sea and thought of all of the seafaring journeys of migration and exile from here, and also of the seafaring culture in Gaza. And for those of us who have had the honor and the privilege denied to so many of our Palestinian diaspora friends and comrades and activists in this room of visiting their beautiful homeland. One of the most powerful memories I remember from the years that I lived in Gaza was waking up at sunrise to the sound of the fisher folk going down to their boats and singing. The same fisher folks who have mourned over the broken bodies of their children, the Abu Bakr family, those who have mourned through the excessive and systematic massacres of the past days and weeks and months. But those for whom, and I'm thinking here of Bisan and the lovely creators in this room who created those badges about her witness and her clarity and her wisdom. But there was a beautiful visit or a video of her listening to Rim al-Bana, another Palestinian storyteller and folk artist and seer and truth teller and healer. And she was by the sea because the sea was her resource, the sea was her grounding. And the images and the videos these days, whenever there's even a pause in the relentlessness of this, of children in the sea, of their feet, of the joy, of the healing of that body of water, that they're so brutally, for a community that has such an intimate relationship with the sea, now banished from even within Gaza, was a reminder of those fisher folk. And sitting here, watching your beautiful faces, a few people who use different mediums for speaking these truths and these horrors and this love and grief and rage and hope came to mind. One of them is Suhair Hamad, who is an amazing Palestinian American spoken word poet and seer and healer from Brooklyn. And she, many years ago, this broadening and deepening of a movement in which Palestinian diaspora voices were still speaking in oftentimes very lonely and painful isolation, wrote a poem talking about how our heartbeats are stronger than the drums of their war. And I really thought that, looking at all of these beautiful faces, the collective heartbeat that we're all holding in unison with those in Gaza. I also thought of K Tempest and their beautiful words in terms of the sometimes soul-shattering beauty of humanity when we just stop and pause and acknowledge it in the other. And I thought of all of the people who are using all of these mediums, to speak these truths to the brutality of the power, being enacted in our collective name until we stop it. I also thought of a young Palestinian photographer and writer called Fida Hassanat, who has been sharing these beautiful glimpses of beauty and joy within all of the horror. And she made a video about people's hands, the hands of children, those trembling hands in the pauses. And when we were staying at Jill, who has so lovingly hosted us house, this morning there was a picture in her kitchen of 3 Palestinian women wearing their tatris, and tatris is very like sweaters from the Aran Islands here. Each pattern tells a story of location, oftentimes of earth, of olive trees, it situates oral narrative in dress. And in those three women, their hands were on each other's shoulders. And then in a pause from the beautiful music, I started looking at the images of Gaza today, the 200 more people massacred, amongst them many children. And there was another video of another father holding another broken body of his child, as he keened and mourned over his precious, beautiful little boy with this little face that resembled the little faces of so many of those children dancing and chasing after bubbles today. I also thought of the hands of the paramedic colleagues with whom I worked and who I bore witness and who were our brothers and who have been killed one after the other. Almost everybody that we worked with in 2009 are now dead. And the majority of the men are men who literally put their lives on the line time and time again. Hatem, if you remember that video at the beginning of this horror of one paramedic on a stretcher with his colleagues trying to resuscitate him as he was being wheeled or run into the hospital, was our EMT trainer. And he was shot on 6 different occasions, on 6 different onslaughts on Gaza before he was finally killed. And what really struck me, and time again, in that sacred space that we shared with them, I've never been closer to the idea of sanctity as I was in the back of those ambulances in this just ephemeral little window of time between life and death, but with not only their profound courage that we've all seen, but it was their tenderness. And that, in a way, I think for all of us who have absorbed the horror of this for decades, whether as diaspora Palestinians, people within Palestine, people who have tried to walk in humble solidarity with this people and their struggle for life and existence past survival, that is something, I think, even more than the images of horror that break the heart. And it is to see that within all of this, all within the relentless onslaught of this all, that profound sacred tenderness, that every child is their child, that every body they recover, every wounded human is treated with the deep sacred respect and love and dignity that they were denied in life. But I also, when I talk about the them and the us, I want to acknowledge the beauty of witnessing this emergent, vibrant, heartfelt, heart-beating movement. And I was chatting with the beautiful Warren earlier about paradigm shift moments when it feels like something is shifting in a way that is irrevocable, that the world will not go back to what it was before this horror. And in witnessing this paradigm shift, I think oftentimes of the concept of lighthouses, of these beaming lighthouses of hope, whether they're in Gaza from the back of ambulances, in what were called the temples of humanity, the hospitals of the over 750 healthcare workers who have either been killed or survived life-changing injuries, multiple amputations, the lighthouses of hope being emanated by the students who are occupying and dissenting and blockading, the lighthouses of hope of our Jewish American comrades who were refused to allow a language and a faith tradition to be weaponized to inflict this horror. I think of all of us, these grassroots, community-based, beautiful gatherings of people. And then I also think of the need for us to stay intact. And that is really hard when we're absorbing this level of horror, but it is so important. And the people and the movement that we are walking in solidarity with is grounded and rooted in sustainability, psychological, emotional, spiritual, physical, as much as they can. There's nurture and hospitality and food and beauty and music and so much love. And we need to give ourselves permission also to recognize that joy is a radical act of resistance in these times as well, that community is our resource and our anchor and our lighthouse. And I know I'm taking way more than my time, so I'm going to stop. But I'd like to share, as I've shared with many human, I think, that I've been trying to engage with, having seen too many casualties of this movement in terms of overwhelm. But the words of Diana Butlu, who's a Palestinian American human rights solicitor and activist, And she, at the beginning of this, spoke about our choir of resistance or our choir of dissent. And she described how in any choir, we all need to take pause and we need to breathe and we need to self and collectively resource because other people will keep on singing that message with urgency and commitment and clarity and courage and love. And then when we take that breath in, we can keep on singing and allow somebody else to take that breath. And that is so essential in these times. We know it. We know it instinctively. We know it in our collective nervous system, which is oftentimes on fire with this. We know it with all of the signs, the wisdom that our bodies are giving us in the sense of the need to pause and breathe, and for that not to feel in any way like a negation of the urgency of this witness and of this solidarity. Because the struggle is long. And as we've seen in so many struggles, too long, but as we've seen in so many struggles that have been enacted throughout human history, that there needs to be a sustainable presence, a sustainable accompaniment, and that we all hopefully will be able to collectively celebrate. And it feels like such a dissonant word to use, celebration in the midst of this horror, but to be able to finally celebrate with some of the most bravest, committed human beings many of us have ever met, but a free and liberated homeland. So thank you.
My mom and my dad, they understand that, and well, in fairness, and to give the full credit, since I met this person next to me here, my life has shifted from like completely. So,
Sorry.
yeah. But like I'm going all the way to Gaza, and I have made peace with several things, and have had conversation with my mother, my brother, my mom, my best friends there, Rafael, yeah, like I feel genuinely that this is just it's part of the process, genuinely, and I made peace with that completely, like from my entire soul. I'm okay with that, and I'm prepared for whatever is gonna come, and yeah. But I'm in peace with that. I think that's what you like to say, and my family's full support. I do miss home. I haven't been home. I mean, now I'm home again, finally, after months that I've been away. But yeah, it's okay.
I'd just like to commend your courage and dedication to this cause.
I might just add to that, that yes, courage, but also not. And it's a hard frame to hold, I think, in these times. But the word, and it was used earlier at the demonstration, was sabush and samud. And I think any of us who have had the privilege of accompanying this movement of solidarity and liberation for even a fraction of a time, that those two words have probably been the most instructive in terms of our steadiness within this. So sabush is patience, but it's an inadequate translation to describe the iteration of sabr that exists intergenerationally in Palestine, that has sustained the courage and the tenderness and the care and the love within the grief in Gaza, and the sabr of the diaspora of millions of Palestinians, amongst them 10, amongst them others in this space and outside, who have carried those oral histories, those memories, and sometimes subverted them in beautiful ways in terms of retelling narrative and story, but that they continue to carry it. And I think one of our collective messages here today is that everybody can do this. And it's not to say that everybody can put down care responsibilities and attachments and livelihoods and step into that boat. But the boat and the boats, the ones that preceded it and will follow it, are representing all of you, A, and B, you're all in a space of courage. There has been a collective opening in this paradigm shift of people being much more confident and much more okay with taking risks, risks that feel sometimes vulnerable and shaky when you step into that space of storytelling and narrative and dissent and collective resistance. But it feels like this movement, and I say this as someone who has witnessed only 25 years of the Palestinian solidarity movement, but I've seen celebrity activists come and go from this space, and we don't need any more. So when we say us and them or us and you, it is all we. This is a collective movement. Every piece of art that is on board the ship and ships, every bit of money that has been collectively raised, eventually the humanitarian and medical supplies that will be carried, but much more important that the witness and the collective will, which is a political project of liberation, of emancipation, not just a humanitarian response. So I'd say within this, just to always remember, first of all, our anchor and our lighthouse is the steadiness, the endurance, the sabr, the samud of the Palestinian people, and all that educates us in. And secondarily, let's get back into a place of no heroes. We don't need to project ideas of heroism or humanity onto others. Most of all, definitely not to celebrities, because we have it within us, all of us, in these small and big gatherings, in our care relationships with people in our communities, in the acts of that negation of self. I think that we all know how to do in times of crisis. And this more than anything, this is a time of the biggest clarion call to step into this space. So we carry all of you in that space, and everybody who has come to every port, because you inspire us as much as, it's reciprocal. And it is such a soul resource for all of us, when all of the crew and participants, our beautiful Malaysian brothers over there, in the side of the room, and about expecting a little baby, who stepped out of your space of family and community to step into another space of family and community while also holding the people that you love very clearly in your heart. And that means so much to Palestinians. And I'm just going to stop with saying that as much as we are absorbing these images of horror through our phone and watching those videos, they are watching the videos of us dissenting and blockading and resisting and marching in the streets. And it's keeping their fragile hope in our collective humanity alive. And even when we all feel exhausted or depleted or overwhelmed, even if you remember that, just being one more body showing up at a demonstration, continuing to speak, having that one conversation with one more person, who might step into this space, it is worth it and so much more, because it is impacting all of you, all of us, the collective. Yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, my name is Tan Safi. I'm Palestinian, Lebanese, Syrian, and I live on unceded Aboriginal land in so-called Australia, Gadigal country, also known as Sydney. My goals are free Palestine. They always have been. I've been fighting for Palestine my whole life. My family... I'm only here today because an Israeli missile failed to kill my family, actually. Quite literally, they were in Lebanon where my two brothers were born, and a missile was fired on them in the 80s in the area called Shuaifet. And the missile hit the roof where they were hiding, and it didn't explode. It was a dud, it was a lemon. And they survived. And that's why I'm here today. And they actually raised me without talking very much about their trauma or the realities that they faced. It was more just, I guess, survival mode. I can see that retrospectively now. When they got to so-called Australia, they just wanted to live a full life and give me the world. I had to learn myself slowly over the years and ask a lot of questions, which was very hard for them to answer a lot of the time. So I feel like I've spent a majority of my life screaming into the void. I felt very alone. I still do in so-called Australia. They are so complicit. The genocide on the Aboriginal people on the land that we benefit from and love is still hurting so very much. You know, the colonisation in so-called Australia was only a couple of 100 years ago. And I've just always wanted to try to make this world better. I've always had that childlike, almost naive, idealistic goal that we can be better if we all just believe that we can be and that we put other people before us sometimes. I think that's okay to do. So often I'm that friend in the group who wants to talk about the bigger, deeper things and, you know, the bummer. I'm not very fun at parties. And when it came time to make the decision to join the Freedom Flotilla and put my life at risk, it was a very easy one. My family are terrified for me. They all had their own moment, kind of trying to talk me, not out of it, but into a space where, you know, they just wanted to make sure I had complete clarity around this decision. And ultimately, they all support me, but they're absolutely terrified. If we do set sail to Gaza from Istanbul, inshallah, we will, and I believe that we will. You know, unfortunately, their fear is what the fear of our family feel in Palestine and in Lebanon and in Syria every second of every day. So that is my goal. That is my priority, is breaking the siege and reminding Palestinians on the ground and Lebanese people on the ground that they're not alone and that there are people who are willing to risk everything to be there for them, and to help make this world a better place. I didn't expect to fall in love with so many people. My God. I kind of came in to the role very professionally and focused. And then I met these astonishing people, and now you all, and my heart is just bigger and more vulnerable than ever, which is pretty annoying, to be honest. Honestly, I've just met so many incredible people. And again, to have felt completely alone my whole life and to feel insane in grief and rage and despair, to meet these people who have been fighting their whole lives, you know, people like Huwaida Araf, people like Anne Wright. They are just my heroes. I've never really had heroes like this before. So that was shocking in the most beautiful way. And yeah, my heart's bigger than it ever has been, despite being so broken.
I'm a photojournalist, so I'm used to be behind the scenes, and I'm comfortable with that. But I think this time and what we are experiencing should push everybody to stand up in different ways and etc. So we are part of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, and I would like to say that it's a pleasure to be here in Cobh, not in Cork. You know? We are a solidarity movement composed by several campaigns from different places around the world. My name is Fellipe Lopes. I'm originally from Brazil. I have been living in Ireland for the last 12 years, and I call Ireland my home. At the moment, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, we have two missions happening at the same time, even though they are completely connected. We have the emergency humanitarian mission that has already 3 boats ready to set off from Turkey, from Istanbul. But because of bureaucratic paperwork, most of you probably know about it, the flag issue, we couldn't set off to deliver much needed humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people in Gaza. We have a massive support and several lawyers working behind the scenes trying to get that sorted, and hopefully soon enough we're gonna be able to do that. And we have the Handala, which is for the children of Gaza, which is it's a boat that are visiting several countries across Europe. But the reason why is to challenge the complicity of the European countries on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. It's interesting to think that after visiting Norway, several ports in Sweden, Copenhagen, Germany, Holland, we couldn't go to the UK because of the weather, but now we are in Ireland. And I think in Ireland is a different story in one way or another. I think Ireland took a really important step by recognizing Palestine statehood. However, as we are discussing here, we are sharing here, historically, Ireland can do way more. Way more, way more. Besides, obviously, the sanctions that we expect the Irish government to place over Israel, which is, it has to be now. I don't know why the governments are taking so long, but it has to be now. We also expect the Irish government to engage more with what's going on in Gaza and in the West Bank as well. We have seen on the streets every single week in Cork, in Cobh, in Dublin, in Kilkenny, in Waterford, all over the country, people going engaging in several protests, demonstrations, which is, it's amazing. It shows so strongly how the Irish people and the people living in Ireland, not just Irish people, are engaging on that. So the Irish government should be listening to the people that are living here. So it's extremely important. There is no doubt that what's going on in Gaza is a genocide. It's not me saying, it's not all of us, it's the United Nations and several other institutions and organizations addressing that. Israel is fully responsible for what's going on there. However, the US, the UK, Germany, France, Australia, and other European countries are responsible, and they must be held accountable for their actions as well. I think there's so much feelings at the moment. Me, as part of the media team, alongside with Tam, we have been pushing a really strong work on the media to change the narrative and the angle of how this has been reported internationally. It's a struggle. We don't have the media next to us. We still obviously need them, and we use them, and we try to get as much pieces and as much articles in order to raise awareness. But it's extremely important to support the flotilla in terms of engaging on the media as well. So Tam has done an amazing, unique work. Not just in order to tell what the flotilla has been up to, but also to raise and to give voice to the stories that is taking place, that is happening now. In Gaza, participants, people involved, doctors, nurses, whatever. And this is extremely important. I think we are where we are at the moment because of the media engagement internally from from how we are producing and engage on that. I think, well, I kind of lost on my notes, so I'm going to put my phone on the side. But anyway, basically, yes, it's a pleasure to be here. And yes, from here, we are heading to France, to Brest, and then to La Rochelle, and then to Spain, Portugal, and then South Spain, Italy, Malta, and then, inshallah, Gaza. We have had support from all over the world. And we genuinely appreciate that. And we hope to continue receiving this beautiful support and this beautiful welcoming. I have been several ports, and it's, as she was, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. Maeve. It is important to, I mean, there is so much, I don't want to say the words, but I should say that is so, I'm sorry, but there is so much shit going on around the world. There's so much struggles in so many communities, so many countries. Particularly what's happening in Gaza, really, it's something completely like, come on. But there is hope there. And I genuinely believe that. There is hope through music, through arts, through photography, through filming, through writing. And we have to use that in our favor in order to keep engaging in these times of struggle. Anyway, I would like to as well acknowledge the support from Cobh as well, from Jill, from Tom, from several other amazing friends and amigos that has been so supportive, and that keeps going. That definitely keeps going. Is like when you stop after crossing from France, from Holland, all the way here in a really rough sea, isn't it? Calling John to help us, and Warren, was Warren there, and Desperate, and Norca is sitting there as well. But once you get here, we have this beautiful, powerful hug from the community, and that means a lot. So thank you very much.
I want to say a huge thank you to Maeve, who has given me this beautiful scarf today, which I fell in love with, and I want to show you the embroidery in the back. Can you see it? Really honoured. Thank you. I normally have the ordinary scarves, but somehow I keep giving them away. But now Maeve has given me her very, very special. I will not give this away, I promise you. Anyway, so look, it's first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak and to be with you on this unbelievably incredible demonstration of compassion and solidarity. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing, and I'm really privileged to be here. And it's always a pleasure and a privilege to be with people who, and to be able to speak about Palestine, who understand and who are standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people, even in these dire circumstances. And it really gives me so much hope to be among so many people who are dedicated to the principles of human rights and international law. And I'll be talking a little bit about that tonight. It's hard to go to speak after the three speakers earlier because they were so phenomenal. But anyway, so I really believe, as I say, human rights and international law, and it really is an antidote to the cynicism that's all too common on the political scene at this time. And I'm truly honoured, really truly honoured, to be with the members of the Freedom Flotilla who are here this evening. The flotilla represents humanity's collective outrage at the unfolding genocide in Gaza, and the refusal of millions of people to stand by and do nothing while people are murdered in their tens of thousands. And it represents the determination of people, despite the failures of international political leadership, to reject complicity with genocide, famine, and ethnic cleansing. The flotilla is an integral component of the massive global uprising against the genocide that has brought millions of people onto the streets all over the world. In many countries, we see people marching, we see them speaking out, speaking out for Palestine, despite police repression, censorship, and threats. So really and truly, today was a truly inspiring day. And it, in a strange way, it almost felt like a celebration of the solidarity for the people who are travelling in the flotilla. So we're all aware of the restrictions on the delivery of aid to Gaza by Israel and how it's having deadly consequences for the people of Gaza. We all know that Israel is using starvation and disease as weapons of war, and this is blatantly a war crime and clearly violates the provisional measures that the International Court of Justice imposed on Israel in response to the case taken by South Africa under the Genocide Convention. Now, Ireland, as we all know, has joined calls for the blocking of aid to stop, and we have thankfully refused to go along with the new, thoroughly debunked, attempted smearing of UNRWA. And I'm very glad that Ireland has, again, increased the support for this really vital organisation. So, the thing is, however, we must do more. Ireland must be more courageous. And I just want to let you know that myself and my colleague, Senator Lynn Ruane, we, a couple of weeks back, we asked the Minister to allow the Freedom Flotilla boats to undertake their journey flying the Irish flag. So we brought it to them, and they are, in fairness to Minister Joe O'Brien, he said he would investigate it, and I know there is some kind of diplomatic legal stuff that's holding that up. But look, we're going to keep the pressure on in Leinster House for that, because I think that's really important. I mean, we cannot allow Israel to veto the delivery of life-saving aid. It's just wrong. We cannot allow efforts to deliver life-saving aid to be blocked by Israel's allies. We should break the siege and save the children of Gaza from a prolonged and agonizing death from hunger. And the wonderful, brave volunteers of the Freedom Flotilla are risking their safety to act on behalf of humanity. So it's vital, absolutely vital, that Ireland supports the flotilla in whatever way it can, and I believe we can do this by providing a flag for the flotilla vessel. And if we act, and we must remember this, if Ireland acts, and I'll be saying this a few times tonight, if we act, others will follow. So the Irish Strategic Investment Fund, so this is some of the stuff I want to kind of fill you in. So the Irish Strategic Investment Fund has been directed to divest from several firms operating in the illegal Israeli settlements. And this is a positive step, although it has taken a really, really long time, too long. However, it should be ratified in legislation through the passage of Sinn Féin's illegal Israeli settlements divestment bill. So that's what the hope is. The recent recognition of Palestinian statehood was really welcome. This call for recognition has been around since 1988, and in fact, there was a Dáil resolution about it back in 2014. So I have to say it's very long overdue, and it's about time it happened. But if Ireland is serious about Palestinian statehood, we need to sanction the illegal Israeli settlements which undermine the geographic and demographic basis of future Palestinian state. Illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank has increased fourfold since the Oslo Accords were signed in the 90s. Israel is expanding settlements. It's beyond belief, to be honest with you, in an explicit bid to sabotage any prospect of Palestinian independence. The illegal settlers are the political base of the most extremist elements of the current Israeli cabinet. If this trend is not halted and reversed, there will be no territory left for Palestinians to express their sovereignty over. Recognising Palestinian statehood without passing the Occupied Territories Bill is just not enough. We have to pass it. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about what the Occupied Territories Bill is for those who don't know much about it. I introduced the Occupied Territories Bill back in 2018. It's a bill that's designed to ban trade with illegal settlements. It was drafted with Palestine in mind, but it would also apply to the illegal settlement in occupied Ukraine or Western Sahara. If adopted in Ireland and elsewhere, it would make the illegal occupation increasingly costly and ultimately economically and diplomatically unviable. So this is a necessary prerequisite for achieving peace and Palestinian self-determination. There are hundreds of thousands of illegal Israeli settlers in stolen Palestinian lands who are stealing resources from and enacting violence on indigenous Palestinians. They are armed and they are protected by the Israeli military, and they kill and steal from Palestinians with absolute total impunity. And this bill is inspired by our strategic thinking about Western inaction on Israel's decades-long impunity in the face of international law. It continuously violates international law in so many ways, including its de facto annexation of the occupied Palestinian territories, its transfer of civilian population into the occupied territories, and countless other offences. Ireland has been one of the most vocal Western critics of Israeli human rights abuses, and it's so fantastic that so many Irish people are passionately supportive of Palestinian liberation, because I believe, like what Maeve said, because of our own history of anti-colonial resistance. But unfortunately, and I have to say this, and I'm disappointed to say it, successive Irish governments have failed to take this concrete action. And don't get me wrong, I think the recognition is fantastic, but we actually need more action and we need sanctions. So this is the concern. The government keeps citing confidential, this is around the Occupied Territories Bill, the government keeps citing confidential legal advice which claims that the Occupied Territories Bill would be illegal because trade is exclusively an EU competency. So many legal experts have refuted this. We have had many legal experts from Europe and from Ireland who have refuted this by outlining how several member states have made restrictions to trade policy on public policy grounds, and this is a normal part of EU trade law. The government, I believe, is trying to hide behind a complex element of EU law because they can't win the political or moral argument on the merits. So they did the same thing for years when activists were demanding a ban on goods from apartheid South Africa. And then a Labour Party Attorney General was appointed, and he ruled that the ban was not legal, and this changed everything for South Africa. So the government must come to terms with the fact that its trade with illegal Israeli settlements is itself illegal. There is no provision within the WTO regulations governing trade with illegally occupied territories. The status quo is unlawful and change is long overdue. Now, the government says that any change in trade policy will have to happen at the EU level. And I hope this is all making sense to you. But in the EU foreign policy decisions, it requires unanimity. So this means that meaningful action to punish Israel for its genocide is impossible, because some states, like Germany and Hungary, are so far gone that they will support Israel no matter what. And if we want to change it, it will have to be unilateral or in concert with other more law-abiding member states. Now, Ireland achieved that with statehood recognition. So we've already achieved that. And it could achieve it, I genuinely believe, it could achieve it with sanctions if it displays the political will. And that's the key here. They have to now have the political will, and it's up to us, the activists, to force the government's hand. It's the only way that we can do it. Now, I have to say a little bit more about the arms embargo bill that we brought in a few weeks ago. The government, I'm sad to say, shamefully voted to delay the hearings of the arms embargo bill that I introduced to the Seanad a few weeks ago, alongside my Seanad Civil Engagement Group colleagues, Senator Alice Maeve Higgins, Senator Ruane, Senator Flynn, and our bill would restrict the Minister for Transport from granting exemptions for flights carrying weapons en route to Israel or countries that supply Israel from passing through Irish airspace. It would also mandate inspections of all flights that an exemption is granted for to ensure compliance and the conditions of the exemption. Now, the Palestinian people are asking us for an arms embargo on Israel, and I think it's a very modest demand. It's not much to ask. We cannot allow weapons to pass through our territory en route to Israel, where they will be killed and used to maim and kill Palestinian civilians. This should not be a matter of ministerial discretion. This is a clear case of life or death, right or wrong. So as a signatory to the Genocide Convention, Ireland has an obligation Ireland has an obligation at this time to take all necessary steps to prevent genocide from occurring, no matter where in the world it's happening. An arms embargo on Israel is clearly necessary for compliance with our obligations under that convention. And Eamon Ryan, who's the Minister for Transport, has granted exemptions for thousands of German and American flights carrying weapons and munitions to pass through Ireland during his time as Minister. These exemptions have increased since the outset of the Gaza genocide. There has not been a single inspection of any of these flights during his tenure. This is beyond shameful. We are allowing the countries that continue to give Israel the weapons and bombs it uses to murder Palestinians free rein to transport weapons through our Irish airspace. It's absolutely disgraceful. There are no guarantees that these weapons are not ending up in Israel. The minister is sitting, I believe, on his hands during a genocide, and I cannot understand how someone really could be so negligent. And my concern is that he is making us, the Irish people, complicit in this genocide, and it's extremely worrying. Now, I'm often discouraged, as I'm sure some of you are. Sometimes I genuinely, and listening to Caoimhe this evening, we all know the horrors that's happening, and I genuinely can't sleep at night because I can't get those images of the broken corpses of a murdered Palestinian child out of my head. I feel the world, I often wake up in despair feeling that the world is broken beyond repair. And I know that sometimes you all feel this way too. But the thing is, we must keep going. We have to keep going. We must never give up on the Palestinian people. We have to keep going. We have to be, and I have to say I am fortified by the courage and conviction of millions of people across Ireland and all over the planet who are rising up against genocide, colonialism and apartheid. And I look to the steadfastness of the Palestinian people. They're amazing. They will never give up until they achieve their freedom. They will never give up until they return to the lands and homes that were stolen from them. When we take political action in support of Palestine, it exposes how our democracies in most Western countries have decayed. It exposes the racism and the militarism that dominates our political institutions. Fighting for a free Palestine is also about the struggle for a better society at home. The struggle for Palestinian liberation is the struggle for humanity, and we should never, ever stop until it is won. So therefore, when I can't sleep at night, when I see those images, I think of those Palestinians. I think of the spirit of the Palestinian people, and they inspire me. I think of days like today. I think like the music that happened today. I think about the flotilla. I think about the people speaking out all over the world, the marches that are happening all over the world. And they're the things that not only give us hope, but also give the Palestinian people hope. And that's why we must never, ever stop, and we must continue to fight for the freedom of the Palestinian people. Thank you so much.
And welcome to the Serious Arts Centre, isn't it beautiful? Yeah. Gorgeous, yeah. So my name is Maeve Higgins, and I'm not from Cobh, I'm from Ballymore. It's about, yes. So it's the kind of, for the visitors in town tonight, Ballymore is the more exclusive part of Cobh. And, class is a very complicated thing in Ireland, but we'd say it's more was it upper class in Ballymore. So you can try anything. You can try and injure me tonight. You can try and do anything you want to me tonight. But I have a number of doubles moving around the building. They might have seen. There's a lot of Higginses here tonight. So welcome to the Higginses. And before I start going off script too much, I'm going to do my thank yous. And I suppose there's a quote from James Baldwin. He is actually also from Cobh. And James Baldwin from Ballymore. Exactly. There's a really beautiful quote from James Baldwin, who's the incredible American writer who spent a lot of time in Turkey and he spent a lot of time in Paris. And he's just one of the great thinkers of our time. And one of the things he said that I really felt was appropriate for tonight was this: there may not be as much humanity in the world as one would like to see, but there is some. The world is held together, really it's held together by the love and passion of a very few people. So that's a quote from James Baldwin, and I was thinking about it as I was watching everybody getting ready for this weekend, and we were following the progress and the stoppages of the Freedom Flotilla. And then we were privileged enough to be able to welcome the Handala into Cobh Harbour, into Cork Harbour, which we know really is Cobh. So I think he's right. I think it's really easy to focus on all of the horror that's unfolding and the inhumanity that's being shown right now in the world, especially to the Palestinians. And on top of that, there are also some people who care and who show that love and show it through community. And that's exactly what we're doing here tonight. So I'm really grateful to each and every one of you here tonight for supporting it and for being down in the promenade earlier too. And for being up here eating all the experimental food that turned out really well. So I also want to say, here in Sirius, Megan, Angela and all the staff, they've actually donated the venue for the night. So thanks a million. Yeah. And it really means a lot, and you were so easy to work with, and we have this gorgeous venue, and you've also promised anyone who wants to have a wedding here tonight. You just have to say the word. I'll just wait here. Waiting here now for the inevitable proposal to happen. Oh my God. Would I get Australian citizenship then? I'll do it. My little Palestinian wife, there she is. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we need to thank the Sirius, and we also did really want to thank everyone who did the food. So we had gorgeous food from Ellen. From Sea Salt, and Lily Higgins did loads of food. And who made the brand new fresh little dessert rolls? Hanan. Yeah. They're incredible. Yeah. She lives in Cobh. You're not giving any secrets away. She's your supplier. Okay, so, and who else? Frank Hedeman donated some fish. And Ellen's Kitchen. Great. So we all go there anyway. I was going to say make sure you support those businesses, but we're all addicted to them anyway. They're the best. And thanks to Alan for the sound engineering and for giving us a cut rate tonight of €5,000. Gillian Carney for doing all the comms and the social media. Jill. Jill threatened to throw herself off the balcony if we spent too long a time, but then she realised that would actually draw attention to herself, so she wouldn't do that. I want to thank all the musicians and the people who provided things to sell in the stall earlier. And then, in general, the Cobh and Middleton Palestine Flotilla group, which is brought together by Tom O'Hanlon. Tom is there, front row, good man, Tom. And to Jackie and Rady for their huge efforts as well, dealing with all the local government stuff in the tidy towns. Jackie is also big on the tidy towns, if you want to know. So we were getting some very mixed messages about, can we use chalk on the ground? The children really wanted to do Handala graffiti all over the town, and Jackie put a stop to that. Kill the cop in your head, Jackie. So I think that's everybody, and if I'm forgetting anyone, that's probably because I have a grudge against you, and I'm doing it on purpose. I'm not forgetting anyone in the video, am I? Yeah. I'd also like to thank all the partners and families of everybody who's here tonight, and that includes the crew and the travellers on Handala, because I think we all get to be here and we get this feeling of solidarity and community, and it's so wonderful. And there's people who have our backs as well, people who are looking out for us at home, minding our kids and missing us. And so I think that's really important to say thanks to everyone who's not here, who makes it possible for us to be here. And then I'm going to shortly hand over to, we're going to hear from people from the flotilla, and I can't wait to listen to them. So that'll be the opening few people talking, and then we're going to have Senator Francis Black is going to talk us through some of the legislative stuff happening in Ireland at the moment. And so we're so delighted to have you here. Thank you. And what else, Alan? Who else is going to be?
Abby's going to play for us.
Abby is going to sing. Oh no, Abby's going to play.
And you're going to do the dance, remember?
And I'm going to do the dance. Yeah, Abby's going to, you know what I'll do? I'll do one of those running things over and you have to catch me. And we'll see how that goes. Show me out the window. Yeah, Abby, if any of you were down in the promenade, there was a girl, Abby Lonsig, she played the violin and it was so beautiful. And so I put her on the spot and I said, would you come up and just do a tune for us as well in between? And she said she will. She's not here now, but so she'll be here. And Vicky. And then, yeah, and we'll have a Q&A as well, okay? So if you have questions coming up throughout the evening, questions about, you know, the Irish political system and what we're doing there, or questions about what it's like to be part of the flotilla, or questions about what was it about those biscuits that made them savoury? I'll tell you, Nigella seeds. So if you have questions, hold on to them. We'll make time for questions, okay? Because I know everyone here is very invested and cares a lot. And we're lucky to have you. What was that sound? Just the door. Hi. And then to round off the night, Vicky Keating is going to sing to us, which will be absolutely beautiful. So we're so glad. Yeah. Just a quick few words about, you're fine, just a quick few words about, you know, why it's important to be in Cork and in Cobh. Isn't it meaningful, actually, that we're here in Cork and we're here in Cobh tonight? I think, I was thinking about Mother Jones, you know, she was originally from Cork, born in Cork just before, I think, the famine. And she made it through the famine as a little girl, and then she ended up living in America and lost her whole family through yellow fever, and then just went on to become a labour organiser who was really a really powerful voice for workers in America for many years. And I was like looking her up, and I was looking up, like, you know, oh, the humanitarian Mother Jones, and then I was reading about her. I was like, I don't know if that's the word she'd use. And then literally, this is a quote from her, I'm not a humanitarian, I'm a hellraiser. I was like, oh my God, yes. So that's real Cork. And you know, she also said something else that's much more well known about her that I think is really appropriate as we watch the continuing destruction by US-backed Israeli forces in Gaza and right throughout Palestine and the West Bank too. I think something else that she said that's really appropriate for now is, she said, pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. Okay? So, yeah, let's keep that in our minds. So, I suppose the last quick thing I wanted to point out, and it's hard not to, even just looking out here at the sea, and we were chatting earlier, and I was saying to you, Cobh is the point of departure for so many immigrants, right? Not these days, but in the worst days of Irish history, when we were a colonised nation and when the oppressors were, occupying the territory here. People would leave from Cobh, right? I suppose they wanted to visit the Heritage Centre before they went. No. Actually, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands, more than 1 million people left from Cobh. So this would have been their the last part of Ireland that they saw was Cobh, and that's represented. Maybe you've seen the little statue of Annie Moore. Did you see the statue of Annie Moore there? So Annie Moore was basically an unaccompanied minor, right? She was an unaccompanied child bringing her 2 little brothers. There's differing reports, she was either 14 or 17. And she was bringing her 2 younger brothers over to, they had been separated by oppression, poverty, war. And then she was bringing over her 2 brothers to meet their dad in New York. Now, she didn't have any papers. Like, she didn't have passports. She would have been seen as there wasn't passports, there wasn't visas. So think about how unfortunate she was and how unfortunate so many people that left from Cobh were. We know about the coffin ships, right? People who literally got on boats that became coffins. And so we know about that, and I think we all feel that deeply in our own bodies and in our own sense of our own ancestry. But then I also kind of think, at least they could leave, you know? Like, it was the last resort, and it's terrible that this forced migration happened, but at least they could leave. And so that's why it's so incredible that there are boats sailing to Gaza to end the blockade, to allow food and medicine and aid in, and also, importantly, to allow people to leave. Now, the Palestinians don't need to and don't want to leave their land, but they should have a right to move, just as every one of us has a right to move, okay? It makes no sense that, depending on where you're born or what time you're born in, that you can or cannot move to get safety for yourself, or even just to get better opportunities for yourself, okay? There's no Olympics of like, oh, well, they deserve it because this is terrible and this is happening to them. They should move because they're people and they're allowed to move. And so that's why it's so important. We need to end the siege, break the blockade, and allow the people of Palestine to move freely. Yeah. So, on that note, I just want to bring up a few of the members, and I'll just chat you through each one of them first for some context on who we're meeting tonight, okay? Also, importantly, you can go and see the boat yourself tomorrow. They have opening hours, and you can chat to crew members then. I know not everybody wants to be like speaking publicly. So we're so grateful to all of you who've come along and made yourselves available. So we're going to have 3 members of the flotilla, the general flotilla, 2 of them who have just come from the boat. So we've got John Turnbull. Now, John, do you want to come up? John is a former software engineer, and he's a grandfather as well. He's a granddad.